Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the level 2 recording for March 22nd. And what I'm talking about in both level 1 and level 2 is the idea and the concept of the Merkaba, how to use it for personal protection, wish making or manifestation, and also that was what I did in level 1, basic stuff, master the basics before you moved on to the advanced maneuvers, how to use it as a tool for interdimensional travel. So now this is a little bit of math, but when you do this, you're not doing math. It's just like playing tennis. It involves tons of angles and math, but when you're doing it, you're not like, oh, that's going to be a 39-degree angle over there that I'm going to need to do to win this game. It's not like that. But learning can definitely help us to play the game better. So, oh my goodness, that's because I just let my dog ate some of my smoothie and drink some mushroom bed water. The first thing we're going to recognize, I don't know if you just saw how I just did that. We've got, start from the beginning. These are two unrolled tetrahedra, or tetra from four-sided pyramid. These are four-sided pyramids, and that's different from the shape of the pyramid that's known as the Great Pyramid at Giza. So first I'm going to show you each one. These are equilateral sides. That means all of the sides' lengths are the same. All of their degrees of their angles are the same, 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees. And this is the basic structure, 60-degree angles and hexagonal grid that our physical cellular structure is based upon. Hey, let's get a picture because pictures worth 1,000 of my flapping moving mouth parts. Thank you for bearing with me while I squint and scroll. And then here's a little picture about, oh, I know it's in here. I know, here we go. This is not my original image, but you can see that we're talking about cell division or mitosis and the way that these spherical cells begin to cluster together and the way that they begin to structure, they make this hexagonal grid. It's the shape of the way that your physical body is structured. So in order to make this Merkaba, what we do is we integrate, and to travel interdimensionally, your physical structure with the non-physical, higher dimensional structure that is actually, I'm ducking off camera, sorry, based upon 8s. So this is the negative space of this sculpture. Cheeky must investigate. She's like, is that food? It looks kind of like it's shaped like hot dogs. It's not food, it's not hot dogs. Okay, if you look at this shape that I hold up all the time, you can see where I'm like putting my fingers over here. That's the negative space. Just, it's like art school talk. It doesn't mean it's bad or anything like that. It's not wrong. It's negative in the sense that like in where your coffee cup, where you put the coffee in the coffee cup is the negative space. So this orange sculpture, it's been through a lot, is the shape of the like negative space, the places where you can put the volumetric spaces in this shape over here, all right? So now I can put that down. And usually in all of my paintings and artwork, like if you look behind me, look, there's that 4-lobed shape. Look, there's that 4-lobed shape. What you're looking at is a cross section. You're looking at just the front of this shape, 1, 2, 3, 4. But now that you see the entire shape, you're like, wait a minute, there's actually 4 in the back too. So what we have are 8 of these kind of football shapes or hot dog shapes. And what we're essentially doing with all of these transformation maneuvers is moving from a hexagonal or 6-sided cellular structure into the time body, which is based in 8. And we do that by, if I change this like this. So now what you're looking at is what is known as the flower of life. We count it around. It's right in front of my face. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those 6 radial spokes, usually we see the flower of life as like a line drawing. But what we understand is that there's one node that sticks out towards you, like towards the camera. And then there's one that I'm holding onto back here with my hand. So we actually have 7 and 8, and those are sticking up and down into the higher dimensional planes. So whenever you look at the flower of life, you understand you're just looking at a slice of reality, and that the real flower of life has these other 2 nodes that stick up. That's crucial information, what I just gave you right there, about how to integrate the non-physical 8-lobed octagonal-based grid with the physical hexagonal or 6-sided grid. And I was showing in level 1 about this drawing. Oh, sorry, I know I make everything shake when I touch the screen. Go into, wait, first I should show you the finished artwork. I change my mind sometimes. I'm like, oh wait, that picture's pretty. Let's do that one. Let's do that one. And then let's also do, well, okay. Did I do it? I'm sorry. It didn't do it. I'm trying to do too many things at once. Boom, boom. Okay, so these are the finished paintings that I was showing everyone in lesson 1, level 1, sorry. This painting is called Merkabah Chakra 1, and I'll show you the other one. This is called Merkabah Chakra 2. So this is what I was highlighting in the first one. Where's my little pen? That you've got this basic, you know, thing, vortex shaped like this and like this and like this and like this. And then you also have around it, change it to a different color. I don't know if you can see all of this, this star tetrahedron shape. And that's just half of a chakra system, because we've got one that is at 90-degree angles and then the other one at 90-degree angles. So that's why when we do this one over here, that's both chakras, or the full chakra. My words aren't even working here. Here, let's do it. Here, talk with pictures. Got one like this, and one like this, and one like this, and one like this. So that is the shape that's analogous to my little yellow sculpture. We've got two chakra, a full chakra or energy center with the two tori. That's the word I'm trying to get to. Two tori or donut shapes at 90-degree angles. And then you can also see the complexity that is achieved by the overlapping of two, and if you can even find a color that you can see here, maybe yellow. And make this, I have to like move this little thing all around so that you can see it. Okay, let's do one first, boom. Like this. And then we've got the other one that is complementary. Oh, that didn't work at all, but you got it. You know what I'm talking about. It gets very complex. Okay, I kind of, boom. All right, very rough and ready, but you understand what I'm going for there. Let me erase all of that. So now let me show you the picture that integrates your physical and non-physical. All right, here we go. This is what I was showing in level 1. So usually I show those chakras that are based in circles and circular patterns of energy. And here in this line drawing, you should be able to see things maybe a little bit easier. Got one that's like that. And we've got all of the other ones. These are all made out of circles. Circles here, circles here, circles here, circles here. And that represents that octagonal based in 8s. Octo and 8. It's based in 8s. With this, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is based in 6s. And other things are based in 6s too, like the molecular structure of a carbon atom and also the shape of frozen water. That's what carbon and water are, what our physical bodies are comprised of, with many other ingredients, of course, too. And the physical cellular structure is based in 6, and the non-physical world of pure time is based in 8. All right, that's math. Don't be afraid of it. Now what we're doing is taking the recipe, the puzzle pieces that make up the star tetrahedra. Here I've got 2 pyramids that are like this. And usually they're making overlapping shapes like this. I know that's not perfect. You know what I'm talking about. And what we're going to do is rearrange it. That's exactly what Patricia says. 6 is physical and 8 is non-physical. Yes, that is exactly right. What we're doing is building a bridge between the physical and the non-physical, using ourselves, our bodies, and our own consciousness in order to transform reality. It's a very powerful position to be that bridge. Like we are the instrument. We are making this reality happen. The way that we do this final maneuver, the first 2 maneuvers were self-protection. That's great. Having an immune system and keeping out pathogens is great. Then the next thing is wish making, like wishing for blueberry ice cream. Ronald's DNA bridge. Perfect. That is exactly what it is. It's what my current painting, 2-dimensional artwork is all about. How to make something happen in reality. That's like starting to toddle around like, ooh, I want to do stuff. I want to make stuff happen. But it's also, and the last Mimsy, she's saying the last Mimsy, exactly. That's actually a really good movie that I think has an unfortunate title that makes people think that it's like for children or something. It's a really profound movie. So yeah, check out The Last Mimsy. That's kind of a good description of what these shapes are. You can start to use the star tetrahedron Merkaba for wish making or manifesting the inner and the outer, knowing that you're in partnership with the larger composer that might say, no, it's not blueberry ice cream on Tuesday, it's frozen banana pudding on Wednesday, but you're still getting something kind of in the same way. Here's a good example. Oh, good. Yes. So, okay, when I was doing my Merkabah this year, because I used a silly example in level 1 about Merkabah not going exactly well. This year, I was doing my Merkabah, and I like this show on TV that's called The Magicians. I did the audiobooks of it, so now I'm catching up with the TV show too, even though I don't watch a lot of TV, but it's a worthy show. And I was thinking that I wanted to have, in my specific desire pyramid, a scene where they go to the underworld, which is like, there's all these different things to keep people busy in the underworld, like bowling. I wanted them to have karaoke in the underworld, but I wanted the people who were dead in that zone to be like, no, we're bored with the canned music. So they hijack the PA and decide to sing their own song anyway. That was what I put into my Merkaba. I was thinking like, yeah, wouldn't that be cool to see that kind of in an offhanded, casual way? It's not saving the world. Clearly that is not like a hugely important thing to think about. But I thought about that and then pressed run on my Merkaba. And then that week's episode, what happens is it wasn't singing karaoke in the underworld. It was singing karaoke in a pocket world. They found themselves stuck in a dream world. And the key to get out of the dream was they started a magical, it was like in a party gone awry. They started a magical karaoke session where they sang the song Under Pressure from, Queen and David Bowie, and all of the people participated and they all worked together. And that was what allowed them to unlock their being stuck in the pocket world. So that is a perfect example of how the Merkaba works. I put my specific desires into the upward facing pyramid. And then I was receptive about what dealer's choice from the cosmos, how this was going to integrate with the rest of everyone that's on Earth and that's not on Earth. The cosmic screenwriter, the literal screenwriter, that all of this was minds working together. So when we pressed run on that program, after all those flavors blended together, what came out was karaoke to save the people that were stuck in a pocket world, as opposed to karaoke in the underworld with people who are bored of being stuck in the underworld. Sorry, I know that was a very long anecdote, but I think that was a really good example of how when you start to do this cosmic lovemaking, you get some of what you wanted, but also some of other flavors and influences that are coming into it. And I totally recognized that it was like thumbs up from the cosmos, like, your request has been recognized, and this is what we are giving you in return for your request. So and it's also part of maturation, understanding the connectivity of our minds and our requests and our desires to what we then experience in terms of getting feedback from reality. So in order to do interdimensional traveling, which is more than merely running on a treadmill, I've taught you so far in level 1 how to have an immune system and how to run on a treadmill. How to get out of this level, I call it hyperdimensional, multidimensional, interdimensional, higher dimensional travel, or you could call it traveling beyond space-time, like traveling beyond the limits of space-time. Oh, and I say this all the time too, that if we're like a little ant or a caterpillar walking on a flat surface of the leaf of time, that if we gain these higher dimensional capacities, we can fly off of that leaf, fly to a different leaf, fly to a different flower. We can experience time in a totally non-linear fashion. So this is now like gaining your driver's license to be able to actually drive your vehicle around. Let me drink some water here. And so this is what the animation shows, because the animation shows it way better than I can show it just with diagrams and models. But what we're going to do is rearrange the sides that we've got here. We're not changing anything, just like when we do transforming this shape into this shape. We're not cutting the fabric of the cosmos. It's like, oh, I'm going to cut that ½ inch over there and just get rid of it. We're not doing anything like that. We're rearranging the topological possibilities, the surface area, rearranging what can be done. And that's the same thing that we do when we change this from being a 6-sided structure into being an octahedron, an 8-sided structure. Putting down one of them so you can see how this little maneuver goes. So what we do is take one of these little guys, I hope you can see this here, one of these little guys, and that was the bottom, flip it around to make it be a side. I know this is my super high-tech version of showing you this. I know I'm fiddling. Hold on a second. Let's make it work properly, because I like taped them together. It's a little too tight. Hold on. Tape is a little too tight. Boom. Okay. We got it. I know it's painful to watch me fiddling on camera. For the first thing I want to show you is it has a square base. This is analogous to the Great Pyramid at Giza in Egypt. This is a different type of pyramid than a tetrahedra. So this one is a rearrangement of those 4 equilateral sides, but now we don't have a bottom. The bottom becomes a square, and what has happened is, although you can't see it perfectly in this model, each one of these 60-degree angles that was the limit of what we had when we were stuck in the physical realm, but now this angle up here becomes a 90-degree angle. That's magical. We just gained another variable. We just went from, oh, I can only arrange molecules and struts of reality at 60-degree angles, to now all of a sudden, I can also arrange them at 90-degree angles. This pyramid contains both 60-degree angles and 90-degree angles. It means we can do more stuff. And we do that with the top one, and we do it with the bottom one too. Here, let me fiddle on camera and rearrange everything properly. It's hard to hold both of them at the same time. And then what you do is stick them together, and end to end. Got 2 of these shapes like this, stick them together end to end, and that is what creates an octahedron. I know it's a little bit hard to see what's going on with all my cardboard over here, but now I'm going to draw it for you perfectly, all right? There we go. That's an octahedron. You see that perfectly there. Let me draw. Put down all my models. Let me draw. Okay, so we'll start off with this right over here, and this one too. So this is a still shot from that video. And one of the nice things that you can see in this is the way that when the tetrahedra start to rotate around, you can see that this makes like a circular shape. And this one is also complementary to like a circular shape down here too. And let me go back to this over here because I think it's even easier to be able to see. So we've got this guy. Here we go. This guy spinning around like this. This back one spinning around like this. Like in the animation video, we now have these as kind of like elliptical areas like that. And what we're going to do is join together these 2 points. Yes, exactly. He says you get 2 cones. Thank you very much for giving me the words. Sometimes you can tell, like, words are hard for me to describe reality with, so thank you for bearing with me. I'm adding in these extra lines, but these lines are not changing anything. I'm not, like I said, it's not like I'm sewing extra fabric onto the dress. I'm just rearranging the way that that original fabric is put together. So what I've just done is transformed that star tetrahedron into an octahedron. And this has everything to do with transforming your perception. First, let's count the sides. Here, this front plate, that's 1 side, here's 2 sides. Here's 3 sides, here's 4 sides. Here's 5 sides, that's the back that you can't see. Here's 6, 7, and then 8, the one around the back that you can't see. I'm sorry, it's a little bit hard for me to depict this all 2-dimensionally, but like I said, we took the puzzle pieces, the 8 equilateral triangles that were part of that star tetrahedra, and we rearranged the sides in order to make it something that has 8 sides now. Let me get an example of this optical illusion that I'm trying to tell you about. Optical illusion, because this deals with perception. I didn't draw this picture. This is a famous optical illusion. If you look at it one way, you can see a very big nose and kind of a slash of a mouth and a chin of what looks like an old woman kind of wearing a babushka. And then if you look at it another way, this is the ear, the jawline, and the little tiny nose of a young, beautiful, attractive woman. And I now invite everyone who's watching this video, like, jump back and forth in your perception. Jump back and forth, like, hey, it's an old woman, it's a young woman, it's an old woman, it's a young woman. You're not changing the line structure of the drawing at all. The lines stay the same. The lines are not moving on the page. But what is changing is your interpretation of the visual information that is coming to you while you're looking at that. This is exactly the same type of journey that we do when we transform the 2 separate pyramids into one integrated octahedron. It is a transformation done by perception. It is the same type of perceptual maneuver that we do in order to understand perspective on a flat canvas. Now, we do this all the time because this is normal for us, because we're used to always looking at stuff that's on a screen. Like, we look at TV on a screen, we look at computers on a screen, we look at everything on a screen. We understand that the screen is like a window, that you're supposed to look through the window and see depth going far away from you. Just like if I were to draw, and I think I've drawn this for everyone before, not to be repetitive. Like if I said, this is a canvas here, or any square object, or any square frame, and then, oh, look, I just drew a horizon. Oh, look, I just drew a road going off into the distance. Oh, look, I just drew some mountains in the distance. I just drew the sun far away up in the sky. If I show this to you, you have the social filter of perception in order to understand, like, oh, yes, that is a line drawing of a landscape. But that is because we've all been living in this world like for 600 years since perspective was invented, where that's normal for us. But before perspective was invented, that was not the way that people looked at a flat canvas, that they didn't look at it like a window that had depth to look through. So literally, everyone culturally and everyone individually had to learn how to look at something flat, but interpret it as if there's an extra dimension there. And that extra dimension comes from you. You add that extra layer of interpretation on it, because no one goes around looking at a flat painting and just interpreting it as only the surface. What we now do is we add that depth to it. So what I'm asking everyone to do is to become adept at doing the same type of thing with this star tetrahedron shape, where we're changing it using our perception. And this is how interdimensional travel happens. It is a vehicle of your perception of time and perception of matter. Because what we're also doing, like I said, is we're making that bridge, integrating the six-sided or hexagonal grid that makes up how our physical molecules and cellular structure is arranged into that octagonal grid or arrangement or understanding of how time is arranged. Each one of us, we are not separate from time. We're submerged in time. We're flowing through time. This is, a basic part. It's a basis of our experience. However, how do we make that bridge? I have a painting about this too, a bridge between squares and hexagons, because this is a basic square structure, like one face here, one face here, one down here, one down here, and one over here. But not to get too complex, I'm just going in too many directions. The whole idea is to travel interdimensionally. We use an additional layer of understanding or an additional layer of perception to transform the relationship between physical cellular body and time. This is how we move in a way that is like a winged adult insect flying around to any leaf or any flower, as opposed to being stuck to the surface of time, only being able to move in one direction, only being able to move in a linear fashion. Okay, wait, now let me check out all of these different things that are being said here. Okay, all right, someone is agreeing with me about the magicians. It's a good show. It is very violent at times, so I should be cautious. If you are sensitive to violence, there are some episodes that are not good to watch. And saying about Fringe, in Fringe they get stuck in a pocket universe, and that they were, well, this is an interesting idea about, I'm sure that there's some truth to be found in almost all of this fiction. Okay, this is interesting. Pedro's saying, I keep seeing the dice used for RGB and board game. I know what you're talking about, like for Dungeons and Dragons or something like that. Yes, each one of those dice, they're the interesting shaped polygons. You can actually learn a lot by the way that those dice are shaped and the way that they fit together. ES says camera obscura, so that's an interesting idea. Patricia says time is a type of substance that we move through. That is exactly right. Like fish are moving through water, and fish do not even recognize formally that they are wet, that they are getting wet. We are submerged in a river of time, and we are constantly moving through time and interacting with time. However, for many people, it's hard for them to even get a grasp of what time is, much less understanding that we have multi-dimensional timelines, many different possibilities and probabilities of what has led us to this moment and what will lead us away from this moment. So those extra timelines, like I'm always drawing the time vortex. If anyone is new or only accessing this video out of order and you don't know what I'm talking about, time vortex is the lower quadrant of that yellow sculpture. Let's draw it like this. My super exaggeration here, where I go like this. And then I'll draw all of these complementary timelines on the side in pink. The one timeline that's in blue leads you out of the wormhole and is an eternal timeline, and you never hit the membrane of death, and all of these other possible versions of you die. They all hit this big giant pink membrane. They can't go beyond that boundary area. They can't get into the next level of awareness because they're not in proper alignment with this little aperture up here, which is what we are actually supposed to be going through. So we're looking at a two-dimensional flat screen or two-dimensional painting and interpreting it as if it has depth means you're adding that additional dimension, two-dimensional to three-dimensional. But what I'm now asking everyone to do to travel through time using the Merkaba is to add a higher dimensional layer of understanding and perception to what we presently see as three-dimensional objects that are moving through time. We could call that like the fourth dimension. You're not just on one timeline. You're one possibility of a field of possibilities. And that we now become able to experience those different peripheral possibilities. Okay, all right, and if there are any questions or what more about how exactly to do this, please ask me so I can clarify. Pedro says, so you can travel in the 3 dimensions, teleport in the 4th time travel. So, okay, I think maybe she needs to go down. You wanna go down here? There we go. You know, and like that, I like that show, the Magicians, also because there's a character who is actually, his proclivity is interdimensional travel. And one of the things he has to learn in terms of, you know, doing his thing safely is not to interdimensionally transport himself like into the center of a volcano or like onto a busy highway or anything like that. So yes, learning to do this level of higher dimensional travel requires expertise. So like I said in the video, I would be remiss if I did not talk about all the different things that we need to do in order to use this tool effectively. So if this is like getting driver's license, we're getting lessons now, it's student driving about how to properly move through time, how to use a Merkaba in order to transform. And also think about, we were talking in level 1 about creating a planetary Merkaba. Planetary Merkaba can absolutely be used in order to transport our entire planet to a different experience of time or to a different experience of reality. So that's a lot to handle. That's a lot to be juggling at one time. So that's why it's like, that's a very complex symphony to play with many, many notes and many, many different instruments playing at once. So begin with something that's a little bit more simple. And let me just drink more water. Basic safety techniques. So the reason why I teach this, like, first learn to have an immune system, then learn how to begin basic manifestation, then begin to learn how to drive your actual vehicle. Yes, Patricia says, I will practice my scales first. That's exactly right, because we need to learn the preparatory foundation in order to be able to then do the advanced maneuvers safely. So again, none of this is like, I'm saying, oh, I'm condescending to you, or I don't want you to be free, or I don't want you to try stuff. I actually want you to try stuff. But if you're gonna do a marathon or backflips or whatever, like, you gotta work your way up to the backflips. And this is like doing interdimensional or higher dimensional backflips. So it is necessary. If I were gonna give you the keys to the car, I would first say, like, do you have enough gas in your car in order to go there and arrive back safely? That's a big one. Because your gas is like the energy of your unconditional love of your heart. And it comes from meditating, and it comes from mindfulness practices. It is literally accreting light. It comes from eating food in the right way by focusing our attention on the food. It means that you have enough energy to actually do this. So the first thing is, do you have enough energy to actually do this? If not, might be necessary to meditate more, accrete more light, get it together more so you have enough energy in your energetic bank account to do this. I'm not sure if I'm gonna need to open the door to let Boss go somewhere else. She might be barking a little bit, hold on. So the first thing is having enough gas to go in your car. Next thing is your seatbelt. That's like, be sure to do your protection When you set up your Merkaba, the first thing is, oh, I'm intending protection. I'm intending that my physical body will be thriving. That it's just like if I'm going to go to the grocery store and I use my Merkaba for protection, my physical body is healthy, my car is healthy, I arrive there safely, accomplish my objective, and return home. I literally do that with whatever mundane chore I'm going to do, because not to intimidate anyone, but literally driving a car every day on the highway like this, you're taking your life in your hand. This is what we all do as a matter of course in this time and place. This is normal, even though it's quite horrifying, but this is what we have to do. So in order to get from my home to my destination back to my home safely, I set up these parameters, like Ronald is saying, ascension. That is exactly right. We can use this as a tool for ascension. So first I practice using this as a tool for getting to the grocery store and back safely. Then I begin to refine my practice and get even better and better at it, not just running 5K, but maybe one day I can even run 26 miles. And that's a pretty amazing thing. If we run 26 miles, that's like saying we are going to take this entire structure of the biosphere, your body and your microbes and the trees outside and my little dog and butterflies and redwood trees. And that's all the symphony of life and the entire planet, all with these complex maneuvers, and transform it or transport it into a different state. Just in the same way that we rearrange these things falling apart into a different state. We've made them into different shapes. So with all this, the big takeaway is, it's like if you take apart a dress, cut it apart at the seams, then you have all this raw material, and then you rearrange all the channels of the dress and you make it a completely different thing that fits in a completely different way. That's what we're doing with reality. That's what these practices are. So one of the other things is we're allowed to and encouraged to use these things. You know, I used some funny anecdotes about whatever, my own meditation's gone awry, but clearly I'm still alive. Like I wasn't harmed in any way. And all of these things, it was always like a funny, like nudge, like, yes, the cosmos is like, yes, Aurora, we see you, we hear you doing your music, like we hear you practicing your scales over there. And this needs a little bit tuning up over here. This needs a little tuning up over here. I'm trying to tell everyone, like, you have permission. And you're allowed to do a rough sketch. If you want to say like, okay, I'm sitting in my Merkaba, I've done my, protection around me, protective envelope around me, and now I want to start to think about manifesting. You can do a rough sketch, kind of like what I did with that TV show that I just very offhandedly felt like, oh, wouldn't that be fun to see that happen there? And then to see how that manifests outward. So if I would say, like, you know, to do a rough sketch, like you do it in a little way that's not hugely important. You do it in a way that like is like when I do a rough sketch in my studio, I do it on cheap paper. That I don't care if it comes out bad. I can throw away, it's cheap paper. I don't use my best, most expensive cotton rag that I use for a finished drawing. So yeah, you're supposed to do rough sketches. You're supposed to explore, like you're supposed to, just like an athlete is supposed to explore the capacities of their, or a dancer to explore the capacities of your body. What does it feel like to move? What is it, how far can you move? How much can you bend? How much can you manifest? That's all what we're supposed to be doing. So it's not like some type of taskmaster where it's like, you must be perfect from the beginning. No, really, you don't have to be perfect from the beginning. So set all of those like judgments and criticism aside. And also, here's a big one. It's not a competition. Big, not a competition. Yeah, Patricia says, thank God, like, oh, like we're taking the burden off. This is big because once you start to try to be creative, this is being creative on a massive level. Doing the Merkaba is being a creator on a massive level, beyond even being an artist with a paintbrush or a musician with a symphony. You're joining the symphony of life, and you're using your imagination in order to co-create literally with the divine. So that's no small thing. However, I want everyone, like, yes, relieve the burden, because the truth is when you're doing any kind of collaborative or creative expression, whatever, art, music, lovemaking, putting pressure is the way to shut everything down. Like when you're trying to be perfect, I better play the notes perfectly. It takes all the joy out of the playing. It makes it harder to get into the music. And when I'm making my paintings, it's different than a performance because it's, you know, like focused on the end result. But still, if I'm like, oh my goodness, like I can't make one little mistake out of place and I can't drip paint out of place. Like if I feel that way, then it's like, I can't even, it's so difficult. You're setting such a tight parameter for you to be able to successfully walk within, then it becomes uncomfortable. So one of the big things is to release the discomfort, release the constraints, be allowed permission to do this. You're allowed to explore. That's the whole idea, that we were supposed to be in this realm, submerged in this wonderful opportunity to explore our bodies, explore interacting with other life forms, explore our consciousness and how our consciousness emanates and how what we think gets manifested outside of us. That's what we're supposed to be here doing. So it's not supposed to be like, oh, you dared, you dared to actually want to paint a painting or actually want to make music. But I understand that there's all of these, the peanut gallery. So, okay, let's talk about the peanut gallery. The pesky occupiers of the interstices. The Merkaba is one of the crucial tools in being able to have an immune system against them. And when I'm doing my flying rainbow lasagna, or when I'm doing any kind of manifestation exercise, they try to break in all the time. So I've spoken about personal encryption, like encrypt your DNA. Say, this is my project. Like, no, evil demons, I really don't want to collaborate with you on creating reality, no. And if you have errant thoughts that come in, like, oh, I'm thinking about all these wonderful things I want to have happen, and I really hope that blah, blah person, like, doesn't get crashed by a car and run over by a truck. Like, that sometimes that happens. And when that happens, you are allowed to envision your version of a giant cosmic eraser. When I draw my drawings, I make mistakes sometimes. I draw it in pencil, I stand back, I look, I'm like, blah, blah, blah. That's a mistake right there. I get where's my little thing? Where is it? There we go. Sorry, I'm ducking off camera. It's very rude. This is my electric eraser. You can imagine an electric eraser. Ronald says, cancel, clear, delete. That is exactly right. We are becoming the computer programmers, the software engineers of this cosmos, and we're supposed to be that way. And in doing so, we take responsibility, and we need to be impeccable. And being impeccable means like your words and your actions match. It's like saying, oh, I meant to do this, and this is what actually came out. And in some of my paintings, I've made mistakes intentionally. I'm like, yes, this part is going to be yellow, and I paint everything yellow, and then I look and I'm like, that looks horrible, but I did what I intended to do, but it just did not end up looking good. But then sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm intending to draw a perfect circle here, and it doesn't come out perfect. Guess what? I use my magic eraser and I erase it. And we could do the same exact thing when we are imagining reality, because once again, this is not supposed to be like some horrible, like you're being punished if you taskmaster pressure. That's not what this is supposed to be like. It's supposed to be joy. Joyful expression, joyful creative expression, joyful self-exploration, joyful collaboration with others, joyful continuation of our life and being a part of the symphony of life. So yeah, you're allowed to make rough sketches. You're allowed to protect yourself and encrypt your own particular project from any unwanted anythings. You're allowed to erase mistakes, and you're allowed to learn and grow from your mistakes. Or like, when I play the piano, I don't say like I learn and grow from mistakes, but I'll say like every time I play, I feel like I get better and more adept, to the point where now it's like, oh, I want to make a note. I can just make that note. I don't necessarily have to think like, now I have to look at it. I have to say it. I have to do it. I can be like, oh, boom, like everything becomes more casual and more in the moment, less self-conscious, I guess is maybe the word. Fluid. Patricia's coming up with the words for me. Thank you very much, guys. And that's like group telepathy. When I can't come up with the word and someone else gets it for me, that's definitely the burgeoning telepathic society. So yes, we have a burgeoning telepathic society, and that is also part of this transformation of consciousness. Just like before the invention of perspective, everybody looked at a screen or a window or a painting as if it was something flat. Then once perspective was invented, everyone learned to look at the world in a different way. But we are now transforming the way that we look at the world, the way that we look at events, and the way that we interpret other people. Let me get to all of these questions and comments, and then it's almost time for me to be done. Okay, so wait, good questions. Pedro first asks, oh, wait, I missed many questions, I'm so sorry. Pedro says, so you can travel in 3 dimensions, teleport in the 4th dimension time. We got that. All right. Pedro then asks, so no chance to accidentally travel? Oh yes, I think it is absolutely possible to accidentally travel. However, I would encourage everyone not to do stuff like that, because it's literally a vehicle. And like, so if I was given driver's license lessons, I wouldn't say, okay, like you guys are all new, we're all little babies learning how to drive. Let's get on like a super busy highway and drive directly to a big giant city, and then go to like the worst part of town in the big giant city. I wouldn't say any of that. I would say, let's figure out how to drive on like a parking lot, on a country road, on a place where we're not going to crash into many other places. So yeah, learning how to control your own vehicle is a big part of it. And I say, like, lock your car. That's what personal encryption is all about. Lock your vehicle, because and also don't drive to bad neighborhoods. And bad neighborhoods, when I say that, what I'm talking about are like the lower astral plane. That's like the best, I know it's hard to find vocabulary words, but astral meaning the world of dreams, or afterlife world that is made of pure consciousness, but it's not necessarily of beings whom have ascended or transcended these levels and metamorphosized, it's like the residues. You know, I call them the turds that refuse to flush. They're all of the wrong notes. So you don't want to drive to the neighborhood that's filled with the worst musicians that are farting away on their saxophones. Like, you want to drive to the symphony. You want to get, and so like that, you know, if you just drove to New York City, be like, can I play in the symphony? Like, no, you got to audition. Like, how do you get to the symphony? You don't just drive. You have to have an entry. You have to know someone. You have to have an introduction is what I'm trying to say. And so in polite social circles, you have to have an introduction. You don't just barge your way in. So these are big things to understand. And if you just drove somewhere expecting to meet the best people and hung out, whatever, in a public park, you probably meet the worst people. So choosing to drive to the right neighborhoods is a big part of it. Okay, so now this is what I wanted to get to. Joelle asks, so this can actually make us disappear from this reality, like dimensional travel. Have you had experience with this, Aurora? More anecdotes. So let me tell you about this. When I was back living in Woodstock, because that was about the time that I was experimenting with all of these techniques, you know, like as a newcomer, blah, blah, blah. Like as an initiate, like just learning, just experimenting, just making it happen. Like when I first got my piano and I was just trying to figure things out. I was sitting in my backyard, and so I tended back then to always do the Merkaba when I was also doing my sun gazing too. But now I feel like I do it whenever. I do it in the supermarket. I do it anytime that I need to do protection. And do protection when you feel like someone is trying to psychically attack you. Any of these little things, like if you feel like whatever, like someone's trying to stick something into your liver or any of these things, or protect yourself. What I'm trying to say, like if you hear burglars trying to jimmy the lock, you don't have to just be like, oh, look, someone's breaking into my house. I'll just let it happen. You don't have to do that. As soon as I feel those types of intruders coming into my mind, my body, my energy field, shields up, like I do it. And so I was sitting in the backyard in Woodstock doing my sun gazing, doing my Merkabah meditation. And I had an appointment set up with a fellow artist friend to come by and see my studio. And I remember I was sitting there right in front of the door, making sure that they would be able to see me. And they came to the back door, kind of like looked around the entire backyard, shook their head like this, and turned around and was going to go back in their car. And I had to literally stay like, oh, wait, hey man, don't go, I'm right here. Like they couldn't see me. I was sitting right there in the backyard. So I don't know, when I do my present Flying Rainbow Lasagna meditations, like I haven't had that many people come on by my studio, like right in the middle of it. But I will tell you that that particular experience was very powerful. Like my friend clearly did not see me until I returned to a frequency band that he could perceive with his eyes. So again, it doesn't happen to me all the time, but that was a really interesting experience that did happen at one time. So my answer based upon that is that yes, this is a tool for being able to literally become invisible and go to a different place. It also is a tool for changing which timeline you are experiencing. So what it can also look like is moving. Like instead of just like, oh, Aurora popped out of existence in the backyard and left all of her possessions behind, what it can also look like to someone else is, oh, Aurora packed up all of her stuff and left and moved somewhere else, and now is having a different level of experience in a different level of reality, which, you know, might be perceived as a different physical location, but which can also be perceived as a different energetic location. Comments? All right. All right. Some things that are not necessarily questions, so I'm just going to gloss over them. That's interesting. Patricia is saying, in your defense, you kind of had to devolve to be here. That is kind of true. That I had to go from moving at a very, very, very fast rate into moving at a slightly slower rate, even in order to be in a physical dense body. And no offense to anyone, but I'm telling you, there are a lot of really slow moving vehicles around here. Like some people are like, zoom, they're zooming along mentally. They're ready for this type of stuff. And some people are like the old horse plodding along, like so slow, so slow. And it's just like, oh my God, like when you're stuck behind the slow person in traffic, you're like, oh my God, this is taking forever. So sometimes I have felt that way. So it can be a challenge. So I always try to find the other good musicians that can keep the beat and that are moving at a faster pace. And those are the people that I want to share ideas with and cross-pollinate with and spend my time with. Because people that are like slow-moving vehicles, it's like, just like, go to the far lane. I want you to do passing lane, passing lane, passing lane. You know what I'm talking about. Brandon says, Aurora, I think I may have had a multidimensional experience the first time I saw you perform the FRL dance. I was present and aware in viewing, but was also somewhere else having an elaborate experience at the same time. That is very interesting. That's fascinating. I would love to hear more details of that, or whatever. I would love to hear more about that. Ronald says, better to create our Merkabah with an intention of love instead of creating one out of fear if we don't. How and why I create it, more important. That's big and huge. So that's a big one. Let's talk about all of this, because I know that there's all this stuff, Judeo-Christian programming. It's the end of the world. It's the apocalypse. If you're a bad person, you will burn in hell. If you're a good person, you'll be raptured upward. And it's like, none of that is really part of like the loving program of the, the big giant cosmic program, or none of that is what it is. But I understand that that's a cultural program that's running here and everything like that. So yeah, I don't think that anybody has to be afraid of being left behind. I don't think that it's like that at all. And I don't think you have to be afraid of being punished, even though clearly there are horrible, monstrous people on the surface of Earth's planet, or Earth's surface right now, that are like very worthy of punishment. I'm trying to think of like the worst, whatever, most evil, politicians and people who are, like baby eaters and stuff like that. Like, yeah, those people clearly would deserve to be punished. But I don't think that that's what this, Ron is saying, wish them love. What I think is more appropriate is to say that each musician at their particular level of playing ability will get to play with others of their ability. And Patricia says entropy. That's exactly it. Yes, the beings that are truly evil, it's like sending them to entropy. It's like taking away freezing their assets, literally. Taking away all of their energetic assets, so they can no longer think or speak or move through time or affect the time field. They're not supposed to be musicians in the band. They're supposed to be completely silent. That is the best way to deal with them. Patricia says freeze their asses. That's pretty good too. I don't want to miss out anything. That's the idea. You don't have to be like, oh my God, I better practice making my Merkaba, otherwise I'll be left behind and I'll suffer on the pit of hell with all the evil ones. Like, no, I really don't think that that's what it is. But also, I'll tell you this, we've had many, many years. We've had 17 years at least in this interim, in order to be practicing our inner practice and to do our inner self-cultivation to be prepared for this. Like, if you haven't prepared, if you never ran the marathon, if you never went to the gym, if you never did the exercises, like, you're not ready to go out there and run. Like, there are some of these long distance runners from the Tarahumara tribe of northern Mexico, and they run 100 miles a day, and that's normal for them. Like, they do it. They run 100 miles a day. Like, they just do it. Their bodies are acclimated to that. And if you haven't been doing your running, then it's like you're not ready to run 10 miles. You definitely are not ready to run 100, definitely not every day. And like, the practices that we're doing, we're preparing for the soul migration, which is like an endless marathon. Not to make it sound like something that's very grueling, because sometimes I say like, oh yeah, being alive is like a grueling marathon. But that's only because like right now we're being subjected to all of these constraints and obstacles. It's hard to run a marathon when you have sandbags tied around your ankles. It's hard to run a marathon when you have boulders being placed in front of your path. And that's what these distorted mirrors, that's what these distorted DNA, it's what the hijackers, it's what the occupiers of the interstices and the turds. That's what I'm always talking about. Like, I try not to focus on it too much because it can be very demoralizing, but those things definitely exist. And that's why they're making the marathon so challenging to run. And there was a time before the degradation of humanity on this planet when it was like joyful running, like those guys that run 100 miles every day, like, woohoo, I'm going to get up in the morning and run 100 miles, and that's no problem. That was eternal life before death was ever invented. So all of this is transforming. Let me just see what this is saying. I've just adopted almost a twin male version of Chica. Oh, that's beautiful. Named Bugsy. He's a special case too. And I'm going to go out and Merkaba around him tonight. Oh, so okay, I have a very brief story about little Cheeky and the Merkaba. So of course I do the Merkaba around Cheeky all the time. Every time I refresh mine, I refresh hers too. And it's because, you know something, she's an independent being, and also our fates are intertwined. Like, she lives with me, I take care of her food, I take care of her body, I'm responsible for her vet bills. So if something goes wrong with her body, that definitely affects me a lot. So I, of course, protected her with that. When I first got her, and we have these plants around here, one of them is called like a fox tail or something like that, but it's got these long frondy things. And when I first got Cheeky, one of my dog guru friends told me, like, you got to watch out for those plants because the dogs can breathe them in. and they get these little thorns stuck up their nose, and then they're literally like, they can't come out. They're like barbed thorns that get stuck up there and they have to be surgically removed. So the first day that I got cheeky, like I think she inhaled one of those thorns, and after that, she started just like habitually sneezing a lot. But, of course, like I did the Merkaba around her, and she just would like, sneeze if she got overexcited, sneeze when she first went outside, sneeze at this, sneeze at that. And I didn't know if that was normal. And I called up the person that I got her from. I'm like, the foster family, does she sneeze a lot? They're like, no, not that we're aware of. Okay. So like this goes on for several months. Then it's the time when we had the fire, the horrible mega fire here in my area, and the air quality was terrible. In the first couple of days of it, all of us in our household were coughing and sneezing a lot. And Cheeky came in here. We were having like a quiet flying rainbow lasagna meditation, and she started having a sneezing fit, and she sneezed out one of those thorns, and it had kind of like, one area was like a little bloody, like it had been attached, and she managed to sneeze it out. That to me was a symbol of how powerful the Merkaba could be, because it's like with the bacon grease that I used as the example in level 1. It's not like nothing bad happened. Something bad did happen. The bacon grease went all over the entire kitchen, but it didn't burn me. I was protected. So, something with Cheeky as an example, something bad did happen. She actually inhaled one of those thorns, but instead of it getting permanently embedded in her nose and having to have surgery to get it fixed, she was able to sneeze it out, and that's technically an impossibility. So these are like, I know that these are like apocryphal stories. These are like, it's not like scientific. It's nothing like that. It's just like saying, oh, these are anecdotes. That's the word I'm looking for. These are anecdotes of what it's like. So, or, whatever, if you put a Merkaba around your dog, like here's another example. Cheeky had a tick on her side, but I saw it like immediately, and it was just starting to embed itself. And so we got it off of there that fast, and so it didn't cause any problems. It's like saying you have a near miss in the traffic problem. Like you're driving down the road, instead of having an accident, you have a near miss because you've got your Merkaba together. So it's not like saying that there are no dangers or anything like that. Or if you're doing anything that's dangerous, I use driving to the supermarket, but it can be going out surfing or any kind of athletic thing that you're doing. Like you put your Merkaba around you, understanding that that's a dangerous activity. Like, yeah, you can get crushed to death. Yeah, you can get drowned. So do your protection so that you are occupying the timelines where you don't get crushed to death and you don't get drowned. And so we put the Merkaba or something like that around. Here's an example using like your car. Let's say, like, oh, something, my car has a loose wire or something like that, or your car has a leaky tire that is kind of okay, but kind of needs a repair. Like I think almost everyone can relate to this. And then what you can do is put a Merkaba, literally envision a star tetrahedron around that part of your car that needs to be held together until you can get to the repair shop and get it properly repaired. And that's another way of like avoiding disaster. So you can recognize that there is the possibility or proclivity of having a problem, but you put this energy field around the physical world in order to avoid that problem. So literally it is held up with your intention and with your willpower and with your desire to have a positive experience, as opposed to being crushed or mutilated, or having your car drive off a cliff, or having somebody die, or having yourself die, or anything like that. So it's like literally navigating reality. We want to navigate away from the realities where we have, crushed cars, diseased bodies, dead pets, or losing our money, or any kind of thing like that. And where we instead, so if you put a Merkaba around your electrical equipment, like your tablets or your phones or whatever, it's like that will, I'm not saying that it's equivalent of antivirus software or anything like that, but it's like that will help you to protect yourself from being invaded through those beings that are trying to get to your personal information and your encryption. Like do regular encryption too, but also like do this willpower and intention, because in all of these there's an array of timelines where you die, timelines where you live forever, and everything in between. And you get to choose which timelines you are experiencing. So the Merkaba is another tool for being able to experience the timelines you want to experience of health and continued existence, and health for all the beings around you that you love, health for the planet. When we come together and we create this Merkaba for our entire planet. So blah, blah, blah. And I should also go back to this. What caused the destruction of the civilization of Atlantis was an artificial Merkaba, one that was created out of clank metal technology that was not in harmonic integration with the larger time field and larger consciousness structures. And instead of making everything super healthy, it destabilized everything. Just like if you played the wrong notes in a song, it didn't make the song better. It made the entire song sound like shit. And that was pretty much what brought us into this level of having a degraded physical form and having a degraded planet and having a limitation of our consciousness and what we can do with our minds. So what we can do now is have the corrective experience. I said before, you don't need a magical machine. You don't need plasterite or orgonite, even though those things are great. Like, they're like a magic wand, though. All that we really need is our mind. And your mind and your willpower and your voice and all of that is what really makes this happen. Ben says, thank you so much for the extended discussion. Does the Merkabah shield stay up for a certain duration and then subside? Excellent question. I would say yes, that it's like anything in your body, like you brush your teeth and then you eat some food and you have to actually brush your teeth again. It's like constant body maintenance, or combing your hair. I comb my hair 12 times a day. I have very long, tangly hair. So any of these things, it is a way of, we have to be constantly maintaining it, or even eating food. Like I ate breakfast, but then I got to eat lunch too. But then I got to eat dinner too, because I keep on being hungry. So it's like the way that our bodies biologically function. So it has to be constantly refreshed and something that you continually practice and focus on. Or like when I learn a song on the piano, if I learn the song, I'm doing pretty good. Then if I don't play that song for a year, I kind of forget. And so it's good for me to, if I play a song every day, I really remember it. So the Merkabah is something similar. So back to what Ben was asking, these are good questions. Is it dependent on our continued focus, willpower, or the quality of fuel we use in daily life? Yes, what an excellent question. So yeah, that fuel literally is fuel of consciousness. And it comes from sun gazing, and it comes from inner silence, because basically every time we have verbalized conscious thoughts in our mind, that's the evidence of friction. Just like if you have an actual motor or an engine that is running and it makes a loud noise or a lot of heat, that's evidence in the mechanical world of an inefficient engine. So yeah, like those guys with Harley Davidson, loud motorcycles, vroom, vroom, just say to them like, your loud engines are very mechanically inefficient. You're losing tons of energy through that sound. But yeah, so if you have a perfectly smooth mind with no sounds being emitted, then you're not losing any energy through friction, and you can then apply that energy to the actual things that you want to have happen. So Ben also asks, are there any other tools you would recommend to help shield us from environmental toxins, chemtrails, EMF? Specifically curious about pyramids, organite, shungite, gemstones, etc. Yeah, I'm actually a huge proponent. My organites are outside; they're in the rain. Organite is wonderful. Shungite. Let me get my little everything. Hold on a second. So this is, I'm not wearing my bracelet. This is a shungite tile. I got it inexpensively off of eBay, I think, for about $17. Like, that's not enough to break the bank. You can put this on top of a 5G router and it helps a lot, or any place where you have a large thing that is creating a disruption of electromagnetic fields. And I got this wonderful glass that you see me drinking out of for my water-soluble shungite. But then I also, all of this is about it. So the tile, that's like, you can create an exterior shielding of these harmful EMFs, but I found what is more effective is to wear my armor internally. So I started off with water soluble, drinking it out of my water vessel, and then I read some of these studies about C60, which is the fullerene shape, and there are naturally occurring carbon-60 molecules in shungite, but it's not 100%, it's a percentage of the naturally occurring mineral, that you can eat them in a lipid form. So the cell wall is hydrophobic, meaning that it repels water. So if you drink a bunch of shungite water, that's great, but it won't necessarily go into the cell because it's got this protective cell wall that repels the water. So lipids go much more deeply into the body because they can go across there we go. It can go across the cell membrane that is fatty and also be held in the fatty tissue. So what I started doing was, I'm not a salesperson or anything like that, but I got these little capsules that are filled with powdered shungite, and it's powdered to 20 micron and it's food grade. That's the key thing. You must make sure that it does not have any occlusions of any other minerals that you would not want to ingest. And then I have been putting that into coconut oil, and then I eat a few drops a day. Give a few drops to you-know-who, because pets are also being exposed to Wi-Fi and to chemtrails and drinking puddle water and who knows what else. Like, they need protection too. So I take a couple of drops of this a day, and the idea is, like, if you're experiencing any gastric distress, like, to stop or slow down. But yeah, so this person's saying shungite, C60, and oil. There's plenty of different sources for that. That is the laboratory created molecule. And so what I'm doing is ingesting essentially the naturally occurring molecule. And the point is the carbon-60 or fullerene molecule is held in the fatty tissues of your body, all of your subcutaneous fat, all your fatty organs, every place in your body. And it can also be switched out for the cesium-137. That is a problem. That is what we're getting from Fukushima, that accumulates in one's bones, whether you like it or not. The carbon-60 molecule can actually replace the C-137 in your bones. So you get the radiation out of there, and it acts as a super antioxidant and as a radiation shield internally. The whole point, after I'm saying all this, like literally, I used to sew chunks of shungite and beads and stuff like that into my bra because I felt like I was getting so much attack of these EMFs all the time. Once I started to eat it in the lipid form, I felt so much better. I didn't have to have external armor, like a tile or something outside of me that was protecting me. I had it inside of me protecting me. So I just did a little post on this. I eat the coconut oil with shungite in it. I've also put small amounts of shungite into my face cream. It doesn't make my face look black at all, but I feel like we're subjected to all of this, feels like it's frying type of microwave radiation. I feel like I want to protect my skin. I put some into my toothpaste, my coconut oil toothpaste, so that I could, so this person was asking who's a good supplier of the shungite powder. This company is called Shungite One. They used to be on Etsy, but now they have a website, and I'll be happy to include the link. And I tell everyone all the time, I'm totally not a salesperson, no referral. I'm not making any kind of anything off of that. I'm not that type of person. I share the things that work for me. And yeah, so I've given this to people that needed it, that didn't know where to get it or how to do it. But a bottle like this was enough for me to make enough tincture for like a year, and I'm still going. And it was maybe like $18. It was under $20. So I think that's very fair. And also, like, all of this is like ammunition in the spiritual war. I don't usually like to weaponize these vocabulary words because we're also having an unfoldment, a spiritual unfoldment, like being peaceful about it. But it's also like we're being effed with a lot. And that these are all the things like ammunition, like pass the bullets. That guy needs some bullets over there, pass the bullets, whatever we can do to help protect ourselves. So yeah, shungite has been a big part. So orgonite and plasterite, those are nice things that you can do, put in your environment and wear them. And you can wear shungite too, and I think that's really great. But I think eating it is the most effective way to protect against the EMFs. And yeah, the 5G is just a horrible death network that we have to fight tooth and nail, and whatever we possibly can do to not be subjected to it, because it is harmful to the entire biosphere and harmful to our connectivity, like our natural telepathy, our capacity to, as a person says, how often should you ingest the shungite powder? I take a couple of drops every day. It has a cumulative effect in your body. So this also means like it's better to take a few drops every day, let it build up slowly in your body, and then it stays in there. It doesn't go anywhere. So you don't have to like drink an entire bottle at once, possibly get a tummy ache, and also possibly just pass out a lot of it through your intestines that doesn't actually get absorbed. So eat a couple of drops a day and let it just absorb through your body. So this cup that I got, again, I'm totally not a salesperson. I got it from a particular company in Russia, and I can give you guys the link for it too. And it was like about $50. And it's special because it doesn't have a glue seam at the bottom. It's made for drinking out of. It's not like they made the center and then a different bottom and they glued it together, because then you would worry about the glue getting into your water. It's a solid piece of shungite that they mill down, and that it's safe to drink out of is the whole point. It's made for drinking out of. So I have all of those links. I'll try to be really good and remind myself and include all those links in the description. And they're all like good companies that I would say, yeah, good, very good, that I would encourage people to source their shungite from. There was one more. Okay, good. So we got that. That was really good. Rachel says practice of maintenance and extending beyond. I think you're talking about like if you're an athlete, like you got to keep your muscles going, otherwise your muscles go away. That's what your Merkabah is like. Sarah Jane says, so when the Merkabah is spinning, it is up, and when it stops spinning, the shield is down. I would say it's more like a bicycle, like, you know, when you're a bicycle and you're like, wheels are spinning really, really, really fast, and that keeps your bicycle upright. And then as you slow down, then it's like, oh, now you're much more likely to fall over to the left or to the right, like you lose momentum. I think that when the Merkabah loses energy or loses momentum, then it becomes less effective as a shield. And then it's like, oh, look, kapow, those thoughts are coming in. Oh, look, kapow, the energy is eating away again. So it's just like time to reinvigorate it. And, you know, the more, just like tying the shoelaces, the more that you practice it, the more it becomes just a very simple, easy gesture, and not something that you have to sit in meditation, like focusing on everything in order to do it. But it's very good to begin those practices in that way. Begin with very focus. Okay, shungite tile on a smart meter. That's a very excellent thing. So there's all sorts of different things you can do against smart meters. Some people do like a cage, you can get a colander, you can get hardware cloth, something like steel mesh that you can put around the outside of it, and you can also put like a ground to ground it to the earth in order to do that. There is such a thing as shungite paint. There's also such a thing as EMF protection paint, and the shungite paint is pretty expensive if you wanted to paint an entire room or wall with it. However, the EMF protection paint is less expensive, and it's available on like a big supplier like Amazon. It's not obscure or anything like that. It's like maybe whatever, it was several $100s for like a large bucket of it, but it was you know, pretty if you needed to do a big space. Basically what some people do is they will paint, because it's a black paint, sometimes they'll paint the room, you can paint panels black and then put them against the wall and then paint the outside of the panel white, so you don't have to live in a black room, is what I'm trying to say. So you can, if you have a smart meter on this side of the wall, you can paint a panel and put it on this side of the wall so that you are protecting yourself from that. There's also EMF shielding fabric, that you can put up a fabric on that wall, or you can put a fabric like a tent around your bed. There's also EMF shielding clothing, and it's like I've seen some things for pregnant women, like you want to have a thing shielding your pregnant belly from all of these EMFs. I think all of those are very worthy efforts. And it's also like Band-Aids, because at a certain point, like the horrible, malevolent overlords of humanity have been intentionally poisoning and polluting us with these harmful EMFs. And it's like, that's okay, like we're just not gonna die, we're just not gonna die. Like I like that study that was done with the rats that ingested the C60 in olive oil. They just refused to die. Even when the scientists tried to irradiate them and give them cancer and like feed them carcinogens, the rats are still like, no, we're not gonna die, we're not gonna die. And I think we as humanity, we should be like those rats, be like, no, we're not gonna die, no matter how much you fry us, but still, it's not cool to be fried on this level. So we have to do whatever we can in order to like literally fight against the increased overbearance of these harmful EMFs, whatever you can do in your local, like some of them are kind of like a neighborhood community effort where you say, no, I don't want those repeater towers to be placed on my street or in my neighborhood. You can get together like that. There's other things that you can do like fighting against it, but part of me feels like it might, whatever, it might be time to get more creative and more direct at a certain point than mere community action and legislation. Let me just get to the last of these. Okay. Ronald says better in the fat-soluble form of coconut oil, and I add some to my vinaigrettes. Vinaigrettes, awesome, and it is quite an inert taste. It doesn't taste like anything to me, so I think that that's very good. And Ben says, thank you for addressing this. I recently purchased some lab-created C60 and felt some reservations about taking it. Not wanting to inadvertently consume unwanted nanotech, look for the natural powder. Totally agree with that. Like, no offense to anyone that's taking the C60 that is lab created, but I was highly skeptical about its purity and whether it's actually something beneficial to ingest or whether it's something that would, because all these things that we can do to protect ourselves, they're like, oh, we don't want them to protect themselves, so better make it screw them up in some way. So yeah, getting the shungite and also the shungite soap is said to help some people that are suffering from Morgellons or like the self-assembling nano sores on their body, that you can wash with the shungite soap, and that helps to break up whatever the external skin-dwelling circuitry you got going on. Tony, Joy says, Tony Pantalaresco on YouTube says to make the paint very cheap, adding powdered lead to the paint. I understand, and I would just caution everyone to be cautious if they're working with powdered lead or any powdered pigments. Wear a particle mask and wear gloves. And once you have stirred it into a liquid, you don't have to worry about breathing it in. But anything like, I have a cobalt violet, this is where I get the purple from my paintings, this cobalt violet, and it's powder. You have to be really careful about breathing in any of this type of pigment or whatever. So before if it's not mixed in with a liquid base, then you gotta wear a mask and wear gloves, and then once it's mixed in with a liquid base, then you're safe. Okay, I don't know if there are any other questions or comments. I'm definitely over time. Questions or comments or anything else that I can speak to on this, and if not, then I will simply end the recording for right now. Then let me say thank you to everyone who's tuned in, first of all, and also I get the best comments in YouTube, and it takes me a little while to respond to everything, but thank you so much to everyone who watches these videos, who subscribes, who shares the videos. Like literally, I know that whatever. There's algorithms that suppress information like this, so directly sharing the information with people that you think could benefit from it can help you out a lot. So thank you so much for that, and thank you to the people who comment, because you make wonderful comments and I get no trolls. I'm very lucky in my comment section. So thank you. I'm just ending the recording for right now.